Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We don't have everyone here yet in terms of who registered, but I think we can go ahead and get introductions started and go from there. Participants and presenters, please feel free to have your cameras off. If you are not speaking, that is fine. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, and thank you for being involved and caring about supporting your students at U of M. We know that you are a huge part of your students' journey, and your commitment is very much appreciated on our end. My name is Rachel Egelhoff. I am the MFamily Program Manager at U of M in the Dean of Students office. This evening's conversation topic surrounds normalizing feelings about your students' transition. We'll hear about some on-campus resources. You may hear some questions and answers, questions that other parents or family members have. This is supposed to be a conversation style, so please feel free to submit your questions using the Q&A tool. We'll also do one simple poll at the beginning. We will take some time at the end to answer questions. So if you have questions that you're just itching to know the answer to, we will do a Q&A at the end. So please submit your questions through the Q&A tool. Also, this conversation will be recorded and emailed out to attendees. And if there are questions that you don't get answers to because of time constraints, we will also provide an email with the answers to all of those questions after we are done tonight. So with that, I'm going to allow everyone to introduce themselves. We have a few guest speakers here tonight, and I'm joined by Nicole Banks, who's playing a dual role as both moderator and one of our experts tonight. But I will go ahead and let you get started. Christina, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks for organizing, Rachel, and thanks to everyone for joining. My name is Christina Girazunas, and I am a health promotion specialist at Wolverine Wellness, located on the ground floor of the University Health Service. And I'll pass it on to Nicole.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I'm Nicole Banks. As was mentioned, I serve as one of the Associate Deans of Students, and I have the pleasure of working with Rachel and all of our colleagues who partner with us for our growing work to support Michigan parents and families. So thank you for this time tonight.
Hey everyone, my name is Chunyue Tu. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an embedded psychologist at Cat School for Environment and Sustainability, and also a staff psychologist at Central Office of Counseling and Psychological Service. Good to see you all.
Great, thank you all for sharing that. Like I said, this session is going to provide plenty of opportunity for family members to ask questions of our on-campus experts, so please use the Q&A option. You can also send something through the chat if you need to reach one of the panelists or hosts, and we will take time to answer as many questions as possible after our speakers have presented. Any questions that aren't answered, like I mentioned, will be emailed out afterwards, so please don't feel like if we don't get to your question, you won't get an answer. And I think we're going to go ahead to our goals for this session, which are to normalize feelings surrounding the transition of your student to college, to provide some resources for you to discuss with your student, and to build community with each other as family members of students who are likely sharing similar experiences at U of M. You'll receive a wealth of information during this conversation. These are just a few links that you may be interested in bookmarking for future reference. So I'll give you a second to either screenshot these, take a picture, or write them down. And then I will turn this over to our experts, with our first speaker this evening being Dr. Tu from Counseling and Psychological Services.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy for you to join us today. So Our goal today, or my goal today, are to provide suggestions on how students, as well as parents, families can effectively transition to the University of Michigan. I will also be sharing at the end about counseling and psychological services, or CAPS. And like we mentioned earlier, there will be some time at the end for any general questions. And you may have attended, for some of you, the CAP sessions over the summer or the beginning of the semester and previously heard about this information, but just want to recap this information again, as we're now in, I guess, the 8th week of school, and your students' transition may look the same or different over the last few weeks, as well as your feelings. Transition may have stayed the same or have shifted in some ways. And I want to remind you that you're not alone in your feelings, whatever they may be, they're valid. So as we start our portion of this presentation, I encourage you to take a moment to pause and to reflect, maybe take a few deep breaths and think about your student. Think about where they are right now in their development. Reflect on what's important to them right now. Also, think about what got them here to this point, starting their undergrad careers at UM. What are they excited about? What are their strengths, their hopes? What are your hopes for them? And what are the conversations you had prior to them leaving? And what conversations have you experienced with them being away for the last 8 or so weeks? And what kind of support might they find beneficial? So now let's get into some of the common transitions that first-year student often may have experienced or navigating. Being away from college can bring a lot of new experience for a student. First of all, these past few years have been really challenging depending on the circumstances and the environment. Your student might be navigating the transition from being mainly remote to hybrid to in person. And this is another layer of transition to being on campus. And your student may need time and space to adjust. And this adjustment may feel really stressful, sometimes awkward, especially when it's with entirely new people. This may also be your student's first experience living on their own, and this can involve leaving behind families, friends, community, and familiar surroundings. And for many students and parents, getting ready to leave for college might be a time of mixed feelings. For example, like feeling sad, anxious, all at once. Acknowledging the feeling they have and providing a listening, supportive ears can be really helpful, but also don't be surprised if they tell you that they're fine, because they're not at the time maybe to acknowledge their own feelings or acknowledge that you might be feeling the same as well. So, of course, missing home and familiar surroundings is another common transition among students, and this may be felt sooner by some, and for others, it might be feel a little bit later. UN will be a new home space for a lot of students. Students will be navigating new environment, friends, or like resources, people on campus, all of which will become familiar with time, and they will have time and opportunity to contribute to a sense of home at as well. Other transitions for students including like lifestyle, routine adjustment, such as wake themselves up for the first time, or like another example, maybe learn how to navigate being sick without family. And this may be new to some who are used to having parents or others assist them at home. This is just one example of student transitioning to increased independence, also responsibilities. Related to that are other general adjustment to having a new routine, whereas high school typically provides more structure. Students will be learning how to balance numerous responsibilities that come with being a college student. New routines often involve things such as effective time management, getting enough sleep, steady routine, managing finances, budgeting, also finding a good balance of work and fun at the same time. And as it relates to living situations, some students may be living with a roommate for the first time, and getting alone may not always be easy. And this can be a great opportunity to make a good friend. This is also common for students to face some challenges with this process. For example, learning how to share a space, adapting to someone else's living habits, sometimes even learn how to communicate effectively or resolve conflict. Some of the other interpersonal adjustment include like making new friends. Some student may be coming on campus with some friends already, but others may not have such connections. And this can be an exciting but also anxiety provoking for a lot of the students to meet new people. There are also a number of opportunities for students to find friends group on campus as well. And also, along with making new friends, students may have opportunities to connect with people from diverse background. It may be new for your students to meet friends or people from different identity than their own, but this is an important part of college experience, is to be able to connect with others from different walks of life and different worldview. And I guess one last thing that's really common that I've heard from a lot of students is stress about academics. So having rigorous workloads and taking their first college exam, which has happened recently, may have them recognizing the difference from being in high school. So if it will be helpful to change their study homework routines, and this may also come with seeing their identity shift as an A student in high school to a B or C student, and how this shifts their perception of what it means to be successful in college. And turn, yes. So for parents or family members, you're also going through your own transition. While exciting, also it can be sometimes be trying experience for everyone. As a parent, guardian, or family member, you may also have fears and concerns that these concerns are quite normal as well. You may fear that the cultural and the family values you have worked hard to instill in your student may be lost or diluted. There's sometimes people might be this fear of losing the relationship you have had with your student as they become increasingly autonomous. You may also wonder if they really take care of themselves and have enough knowledge and will be responsible when they face with making decisions. Again, I encourage you to maybe take a moment to pause and reflect and take another deep breath and consider how their transition has been so far. What are some parenting wins you can be proud of? And what areas might you want to revisit this time? I want you to pause and congratulate yourself, acknowledging that your student has started at the University of Michigan, and it took a lot of work for all of you to get to this point. Also consider if there's any support that you might need. Can you prioritize taking care of yourself so you can be present to support your student? And for some parents, this is the first time having a child go to college, and sometimes you may be feeling the first time being empty nesters. This can be exciting, stressful, sad, and you may even feel a sense of loss. And the important thing is to know that there is no right way to feel, and it's very common and expected to have mixed feelings about this transition that you're going through yourself. You can change to the next slide. So how can you do something to help? First, trust your past parenting because you worked really hard to get your student here. Also, support their independence and decision making. For transition age youth, this is a really important developmental stage, and you can be navigating with the balance of trusting your student and also checking in and being available for support and advice. Also anticipate some anxiety and ups and downs. We encourage you to validate your students' feelings and communicate openly. Discuss some realistic expectations with your students. Many students at UM are used to be in the top 1 or 5% of their high school classes, and the imposter phenomenon, or feeling like they're a fraud who does not belong here, is really common. We also encourage you to focus your question on courses and what is being learned versus the grades they're getting. Decreasing comparison of your students themselves and their performance to their peers can also be a helpful strategy. Also consider expectations regarding managing busy schedules, finances, and what holidays and breaks may look like. Some students might want to sleep for a majority of breaks. Others will be connecting with friends from home, and others will not know what to do with themselves with less structured time after having such a packed schedule during the semester. And change to the next slide. So for some of you, this may be the first time you're sending a student off to college. And for others, you may have prior experiences. And we encourage all of you to know when to intervene because you know your student. If it seems like that they are not themselves, that they are needing support, encourage them to utilize the resources, which is come to CAPS or seeing therapists in the community. And this is really important for you to know the resources and also know your limits to know when additional support is needed. Also, it may also be helpful to continue to have conversation about common first-year struggles. An example conversation starter may be, I know you've been excited about school, and I'm excited for you too. And I'd like to talk with you about some common struggles that may arise. And also, if any of you are finding that you need support, seeking out your own help can be a really great way to model help seeking for your student. And this is also a time to offer support or provide recommendations to seek supportive services, such as us, CAPS. It can also help to normalize and promote help seeking by stressing that it's a strength to take advantage of these resources. So what do we offer here at CAPS? We provide free, confidential, solution-focused therapy to currently enrolled students through one-on-one, relationship, and group therapy options. Our diverse staff is comprised of generalist clinicians that are equipped to help students with a variety of concerns that might arise during their time at U of M. We're located at the 4th floor of Michigan Union, and we also have different embedded counselor positions in particular schools on campus, and we can all be reached by email. So here listed are hours of operation and contact info, and you can find more information by checking out the For Parents section on our website here. We also have options for individual peer support as well as group peer support and a number of online and mental health resources. And it's really important to plan ahead if your student has pre-existing mental health issues or could benefit from long-term therapy. Identifying therapists in an Ann Arbor area, ideally before the academic year start, is a helpful first step, but it's still not too late right now. As the stress for classes and exams are still building up for a lot of students, there are a lot of resources to help with this process, which can be found on our website. Sometimes students might be reluctant to talk with parents about seeking services, therapy in the community due to worries about finances and insurance. So it can be helpful to normalize the help seeking process and encourage it early on. And then also helpful and important to know that sometimes mental health concern can impact academic performance. So if you know your student has a mental health condition that might impact their academics, maybe consider contacting services for students with disability office to inquire about academic accommodations, such as extending testing time or different type of accommodation that's needed. So that's pretty much it for my part. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tu. We appreciate you being here tonight. Again, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and we can answer them after everyone is done presenting. And with that, I will turn it over to Christina.
Thanks, Rachel, and thanks, Dr. Chu. Similar to what you were saying, for some folks, these slides may be familiar, and some of the resources that I talk about or our philosophy might be familiar. And it's important especially now that you've had a little bit more experience with your students on campus, to revisit some of the ideas. And we're starting with the spectrum of experiences, both for parents and families and students. So we have thousands of students that join us on campus that have experiences all across the spectrum when we think about certain behaviors, whether that is with alcohol and other drugs, whether that be around sexual health, whether that be around stress, anxiety, help-seeking behavior, whatever that might look like. So some students have no exposure experience, some have little, some have some are a little bit more involved or high levels of exposure. And you can think about all those behaviors that I mentioned as we move forward in this presentation. And it might be helpful to think about what that looks like before your students joined on campus and now that they are on campus, where they land on here, but also for yourself. Where do you land on here as you think about some of these behaviors? Next slide, please. So we really like to look at well-being as a holistic approach. Often, especially at the University of Michigan, we consider, folks think that academics, as long as students are doing well with their grades or their academics, as Dr. Chu mentioned, expanding those questions beyond grades is really important. So our goal at U of M is to really help students think how to incorporate their well-being as a part of their success, and what type of questions or interactions you have with your students can amplify or can help students really think about their well-being as a part of their success. And you can click on some of the links that I think will follow this presentation to explore more of these dimensions, these interrelated dimensions, and how you can help your students really think about them more closely and which ones make sense to them. And your students see this model of well-being on their Canvas site as well. So they can click on the Canvas site, they can click on the model of well-being and explore it themselves. And that could be a great conversation starter. And say, what did you think about the model of well-being, or which dimension is most important to you right now? And that might change depending on the season. It might be emotional and mental well-being around higher social times on campus, whether that be around football season or Halloween or other festive activities. It might be spiritual depending on what season it is. It might be financial depending on what season it is. So it's a great conversation starter to see which one is most important to them, but also which one is most important to you. So as I mentioned, Wolverine Wellness is on the ground floor of the University Health Service. These are our services that we offer and that you can consider. And now that you have a better idea of where your students are landing or in the conversations that you're having, how can you help them get connected? I know Dr. Chu talked a lot about help-seeking behavior, and I'm going to talk about that as well, is that how can you normalize help-seeking behavior and reaching out for resources. So we have wellness coaching, which is a judgment-free, shame-free space to really help students think about, intentionally think about their goals based on their values and create some accountability for that. We have group sessions, but we also have one-on-one sessions, and students can sign up on their own. We have our collegiate recovery program. So as we think about various identities on campus, how important it is for students to get connected with a community that is appropriate for them. It's a great place for students who are in recovery from alcohol and other drugs to find a community that they feel like they can have their authentic college experience. Often students hear stories from, maybe that's from family members, that's from an older sibling or a cousin, or even the stories that you have shared about your college experience. If that was something that was a part of your story. And so they create these expectations about what college is supposed to look like. And so being able to help them think about what is it that they authentically want on campus. And for some, that might be choosing not to use alcohol or other drugs. And so really thinking about that continuum of experiences again. Some students come to us with no drinking experience. Some students come to us with some. Some have more than average or problematic use, and some have high levels, right? And so our job is to have a comprehensive approach in that, whether that be creating spaces and community where students can connect where alcohol is not the focus, whether that's harm reduction messaging, and that's some of our campaigns that I've listed here and I'll go into, or that's creating connections in terms of finding support, whether it be a community or higher level care. Some of the campaigns that you might be able to explore are listed to the right. One of those is our Stay in the Blue campaign. So as I was talking about alcohol and other drugs and where that lands for students, if they're choosing to use, how do they do so in a way that reduces risk? And the Stay in the Blue campaign encourages students to stay at 0.06 or below blood alcohol content level, and provide some strategies like eating before or during drinking, hydrating, pacing themselves. So a lot of what we talk about with parents is setting those expectations with students. If, based on the values that you have or the values that they have, family values, if the expectation is to not use or drink on campus, then share that, or any of these other behaviors that you might think about. We do. So bleeding into the parent and family communication program is probably something that is important to share with this group that comes out of Wolverine Wellness. It's a well-being check that's put into place, and it allows for students, first year students specifically, if there is higher level alcohol or other drug related incident or multiple incidents, there is a well-being check where we can connect with families and talk about what works for the student moving forward, what's important for the student moving forward, and potentially interrupt any possible patterns of behavior. The Pause and Relax Therapy Dog program, I'll get into that a little bit, is one of our, I've watched this happen organically where students have a space to connect. And we have Hawkeye and Sherlock who join us every Tuesday from 12 to 1. And students can sign up for sessions, but this is helpful, especially if students are missing their furry loved ones, creating a space for them to take a pause, to relax. And I've seen students come over and over repeatedly on Tuesdays, and by the end of the semester, they've made these connections organically with other students. So when you think about how they create those sense of connection and find a sense of belonging, Hawkeye and Sherlock have created that space for us. So these are some of the recommendations, and you can add to these, or maybe you're already doing them. So as you think about how to have productive discussions with students, being specific about what you expect for them in their college experience, as I already mentioned, whether that's abstaining or drinking moderately, and what does that look like? Often, I'll ask students, well, what did, your parents, how did parents feel about this, or your trusted loved one? What did they say? They said, be safe, be smart. And what does that mean? Because be safe and be smart for each person might mean something different. Does be safe and be smart mean track your drinks, hydrate, set a drink limit? Or does that mean my expectation is that you don't engage in any substance use? And that students choose not to use, families, for a wide range of reasons, whether that be health reasons, religious reasons, choosing to wait until they're 21, family history, already in recovery. And so being able to share some of these specific expectations whether that be around drinking or making positive choices about their sexual health and eating patterns. What does it mean to practice financial responsibility? So again, thinking back to that model of well-being in each of those dimensions in different moments in time during their college career might land higher and lower. Asking questions and being prepared for the answers. So creating that space, maybe taking similar what Dr. Chu was saying, taking that deep breath before you engage in those conversations to learn and hear from them about what their experience is like, and listen in a non-judgmental manner, which allows the communication to stay open. And some of the suggested questions are below. You'll see the bolded open-ended questions to ask and to potentially help you get started, or to add to your toolbox of what you're already using in terms of your communication skills. For example, what are some decisions that you are facing right now? Versus, was that decision hard, right? Yes or no could be the answer, but open-ended questions create more space for dialogue. How do you cope when you feel stressed? Or what do you think helped you cope with stress before going to college that you could still rely on now? How do you connect with other students on campus? And what do you do with friends in your free time? And you can add more questions to that. I challenge you to think about how you can shift those questions to an open-ended question to increase the dialogue. I shared this continuum of care to remind folks that there's no wrong place for a student to land when they want to reach out for resources, when they want to reach out for help. And this might also be a space where you can see, all right, where is it that resource that my student is looking for? Is it something that might be a little bit more targeted, or something that I think I need to step it up a bit? And no matter where they land, whether that's CAPS or the Dean of Students or wellness coaching, we all work together to find the right resource or support for your student. So helping us help them encourages help-seeking behavior and identifying the right place for them to land.
Thank you, Christina. I really appreciate your insight and your expertise. And with Christina, those are the end of her slides. And so we're going to turn it over to Nicole.
Thank you, and good evening once again. I wanted to just take a few minutes tonight to talk a little more about the support that is available to students from the Dean of Students office. We think it's important for parents and families to know how our office operates so that you feel comfortable contacting us or referring your student to us. On this slide is a list. It's not an exhaustive list, but a list of the types of experiences that students may have that lead them to our office. Many of the things that are listed here require multiple campus partners or units to engage in order to help solve problems, and, make a path correct again for the student, and try to restore their sense of normalcy on campus and ability to thrive and make progress. But we're happy to be that coordinating unit and that first point of contact. And I'll use some examples that are from the list here. Students, unfortunately, might experience accidents or injuries on or off campus that can affect their ability to move about campus, may cause them to miss some participation in class or in some of their activities. And we're happy to meet with them and talk through some of the implications, the campus resources, not only for their care, but for communicating with their faculty or coaches, with others who may need information so that there can be the appropriate accommodations. We also know that students experience changes in their personal resources, and there may be an area of a basic need where they really could use some support. We sit with students and talk about managing their resources finding campus resources and programs and services that are there. And in the case of basic needs, we will work with students on understanding their shopping and budgeting if they are responsible for their own meals, maybe for the first time, or it's been a while, but they're trying to get better at it. Like, we work with them on very practical things to the extent that we need to. So we're very accustomed to students coming to us and saying, you know, this is an aspect of adulting that I want to learn to do this for myself. So not everything is a significant emergency or interruption. Some things are just practical needs and areas where they feel that they're struggling and it's a distraction or a barrier. Something else that is happening, that happens on campus, and we know that this is a current concern. It's at the bottom of the list on the left there, campus climate concerns. So in that instance, that is a set of work where we're focusing on the climate for inclusion, climate for social justice. And if students are experiencing things that are happening in their campus environment, can be a reflection of very difficult things that are happening in the world as we see today. If they're feeling that things are creating hostile or unwelcoming dynamics, could be a peer in a class, it could be something that they've always questioned, it's stated in a policy or practice, but it's causing them to feel unwelcome or uncertain. We'd like for them to come and talk with us. Campus climate support is definitely there to work with students on a case-by-case basis around the types of things that help each individual discover more, make sure they are clear in their privileges and rights as a Michigan student. And for many students, we're able to help them find and connect to a larger community of identity groups that will help them also then be a bigger part of the campus community. So there are a number of ways in which we are able to assist students. They may show up to us first as a drop-in or contact our office to make an appointment, or we may receive a referral. Could be a faculty member, could be an upper class student who's concerned about a newer student. And as always, we also hear from parents and families who are looking for ways to get information or looking to direct their student to our office as maybe a first stop to start to organize and understand what the needs are. On the right side of this slide, you'll see the various ways, information about the various ways to contact our office. So phone is always easy. Our office is open from 8 until 5, Monday through Friday. Contacting our office by email is also appropriate. Sometimes a student will write to us and they'll copy their parents, but they're asking for help with something and they're working with their parents through a concern, and it's absolutely fine. Also, family members can contact our office and copy their student and say, our student is looking for this type of information. They are copied on this email. Would someone please follow up with them? We're happy to help. Students can also drop into our office. We're located in the Michigan Union on the 3rd floor. It's Suite 3100. The students can come by and see us. We always have staff available for drop-in service. They can also request a time if it's easier for them to organize it based on their calendar and set a specific appointment. And the last way that I'll mention here that you can request support for a student is to submit a form on our website. If you go to the Dean of Students website, you will see that there is on the landing page, it looks like a button, and it says request support for a student. So there are many ways to get in touch with our office. We are absolutely happy to help. It's fine for us if we are a starting point or if we actually need to work with a student or family for a period of time to really address, concerns and things that can be barriers. We don't have a practice of giving students a couple recommendations and sending them on their way. We will partner with the student to understand whether or not working with us to get information is primarily what they want to do, and then they plan to go on and complete some steps on their own, or if they would prefer that we make introductions for them by email or telephone, and we can stay engaged with them and support them and follow through on any of the action items that they identify in our office for support. So please keep our office in mind, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I'll just close by wishing you all well. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. So I'm going to ask now that if you have any questions, you post those questions in the Q&A, and you can direct your questions to one of our presenters, or you can just ask a general question and we'd be happy to answer that. While you're doing that, I'm going to give you a fun list of some ideas for sending care packages or dropping off care packages for your students. These are some of the ideas that we've gathered from students, some things that they routinely ask for or request. So I'll give you a few minutes to enter your questions in the Q&A. And please keep in mind that while this is a bit of a heavy topic sometimes, we like you to keep a sense of humor. One of our other program managers threw this in and she thought it was really cute. But they mailed a care package and it was definitely not bees. I haven't seen any questions come through yet, but I'll give it another few minutes, few seconds. I haven't seen any questions come through. So we will move on. This is a QR code to a survey. We design these conversations and this series with you in mind. These are hopefully geared toward conversations that are important to you as a family member or a parent or a supporter of a U of M student. So we'd love to hear from you how you like this conversation, what your favorite part was, what you'd like to see more of, or any lingering questions you have after this. So if you scan that QR code with your phone, it will take you to a quick 5-question survey. And that would really help us to make these conversations more interesting, more tailored to your needs, and make sure that we have information included that is important to you while you're supporting your student here. And lastly, I just want to say thank you. These are some of the websites that you may find interesting. You may want to screenshot or take a picture with your phone. Additionally, our next conversation will be November 14th, and that will be focused on where your student will be living next fall. So that could be on campus, off campus, and we'll have presenters from a variety of offices on campus, including our own Dean of Students office and the Beyond the Diag program, which focuses on off-campus housing, fraternity and sorority life, on-campus university housing, and some other presenters. So we hope that you'll join us for that. Please feel free to reach out to us at any time. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation. And if you think of anything after tonight, we will be emailing you the presentation along with our contact information. So if you have anything or any burning questions later, you can feel free to send them out to us. So I thank you all for joining us and appreciate you being here tonight.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
You're
Have a
welcome.
good one.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.